Hey everybody, welcome to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron, and today we're actually going to work inside the shop. Doesn't happen very often. I got a lot of stuff in here, takes up a lot of room, not a lot of room to move around, but the weather outside is supposed to be pretty crappy for the next, well, for this afternoon and evening and all day tomorrow. And I was working on a project, making a video outside, so I had to kind of put a stop to that and figure out what I could do while the weather was bad. So we came in here. I spent this morning cleaning up an area here where I have room to do something, and that's odd because, like I said, there's so much crap in here that I can't really find anywhere to do anything. But I needed a fairly open space where I could have a clean table to set stuff on, and I needed room where I could put something to work around it, because it's been a long time and much anticipated by some people, but we're gonna get back on Shorty today. So he's been sitting over here in the corner minding his business, taking a rest, but we finally worked our way back around and through to getting him back in the rotation and getting something done. So what we're gonna do today, I'm gonna Shorty's, you know, a series on Shorty, but I'm gonna do like a series inside of a series. So we got a 6.0 LS out of a 2005 Denali. I'm 99% sure that it's an LQ9. I could be wrong, but I think that's what it is. And we're gonna get started on it. It's got a stage 2 4L60 trans. It's been rebuilt. I'm gonna clean it up and paint it before we put it in, but it's all been gone through and rebuilt. And then we have the motor that was just snatched out of the Denali that belonged to the owner of Shorty. So he's had it for a while. He knows the motor, knows it's good, all that stuff. But just like everything else we do on the channel, we can't never leave anything alone. So the 6.0 is not just gonna get cleaned up, bolted to the trans and thrown in the truck, because that would be the right thing to do and it'd just be too easy. Why would we do something like that? So I'm gonna tear it down, not all the way. We're gonna basically tear it down to a short block. We're gonna disassemble the heads. We're gonna pull the cam. We're gonna re-gasket the entire thing, new oil pump, new cam, Texas speed cam, new push rods, new springs, I believe, maybe not, trunnion upgrade, we're gonna do a lot. So I'm gonna do a little series on the motor because I'm not gonna be able to get it all done in one video. I don't wanna get it all done in one video. So this video, we're gonna tear it apart, organize everything, clean some stuff up, see what all. I'll go over exactly what we're gonna do to it, and then we'll see where we're at time-wise with that. And if we still got more time, we may go a little farther. If we don't have time, then we'll go to part 2 of the engine. But for right now, I need to get this thing over there, picked up on the engine stand where we can work with it, and then we can get started. All right, well, we got our little work area set up over here. I got the motor on the stand so we can work with it, and got a table here to spread parts out on or whatever else, and we're about ready to get going. So I'm pretty sure he told me that he drained the oil out of this before he brought it to me, but I'm not 100% sure, and I'm not going to find out when I roll the motor over to take the oil pan off that he didn't. So I'm just going to go ahead and pop the drain plug and make sure that there's nothing in it. And I'm assuming it's been drained because the drain plug is loose. But either way, I'm going to take the drain plug out And that way I'll know that if anything, we shouldn't have a whole lot of oil running on us when we roll it over. Yeah, there's nothing in there. So, all right, well, that's good news. Don't have to worry about that now. So, first thing I'm gonna do is get all these accessories off the front, which all that's really left now is just the bracket with the power steering pump and then this AC compressor. So we're gonna go ahead and get these out of the way. They're all gonna stay on the motor for our application, but they're in the way for what we need to do before we put the motor in the truck. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pull them off real quick, and then we'll keep going. All these bolts take a 15 mil, and they're just, well, not all of them, those take 14. Or it's stripped out, one or the other. You got her. One over here on the side that you always forget about until you got to take it off and it won't come. I think it's just that one. And I think that's all of them. We'll find out in a minute when I take them out. And it doesn't come off. Yep, that's it. I usually try to keep all the bolts that I take off of something with it. Makes it easier. I know which bolts go where, but I don't feel like digging through a box of a whole bunch of bolts to find the one that I need to put in. So just makes it a little bit easier. He already had these valve covers loose from when he pulled the motor out, so I can get them off by hand. I'm just getting the quick and easy stuff out of the way real quick, and then I'll bring you guys in here and show you, you know, taking the valve train off and stuff like that, in case you're watching this video to figure out how to do that stuff. So. And just to make it easier on my back and easier to follow, I'm just going to start at the top and work my way down. So we'll get the valve covers off. I'll pull the steam vent off the front. I'm not going to take the two off of the back until we go to put it back together, because the only thing I need to pull these out for, unless he bought a steam vent kit, which I'm not sure. If he bought a steam vent kit, we'll have to take them off and put the steam vent kit on. If he didn't, all we got to do is put new O-rings on them and stick them back in. So we'll leave those on for now, but you have to take the front off because of the pipe that ties those two heads together. So. Alright. I need to go get some other sockets. I'm gonna need an 8 for these, 10 for those, 13 for those. I'll be right back. Alright. We're back. Got this Milwaukee impact ratchet. My buddy Jeff gave it to me, and Fred, but I haven't really used it a whole lot because I'm a creature of habit and I always just use the same stuff over and over again. But my 3/8 impact gun that I used for everything decided it didn't want to play nice no more. So now I no longer have that. So I'm trying to figure out what I can use to take stuff apart that'll take its place, and I'm just not having much luck. I don't want to leave anybody out. Jeff, Fred, and Cheryl gave me this ratcheting impact. So I've already thanked them, but thanks again, guys. We're going to see how it does. It's doing pretty good. Alright. Got that. Now's where the fun part comes into play, because we got to take all these off separate. No shaft mounted rockers here. What I'm going to do, I'm going to come over here on my table, and all this stuff is going to get thoroughly cleaned and whatever else before it goes back on. So whoever's going, oh man, I can't believe you're just going to set that stuff on that plywood table, it's going to be fine. We still got to do trunnion upgrades. We're putting in new push rods, new cam. Pretty sure we're doing new springs, all that. So everything will get cleaned up really good before I put it back in. I am still going to put everything back in the same spot that it came off of. Not really that it matters, just because I'm OCD and that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to lay them out on the table in the order that they come out. And then I'll probably mark the table, 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8. I might even put an eye underneath for which one came off of the intake, which one came off the exhaust, so on and so forth. But for right now, just laying them out where they came from, I'll know which ones they are, and they'll be fine. So. I'll show you guys that in a second, but some weird wear on that push rod, which, general rule of thumb on an LS, in my experiences anyways, if you got any kind of wear in your valve train on an LS, you got a cam lobe that's going, or a lifter that's failing, that's going to take out a cam lobe. But I don't know how well you guys are going to be able to see this, but you see how this one's all perfectly rounded off and shiny and everything? And then this one here, it's not shiny. Hopefully that'll. I'll try to show you guys with the other camera, but it's got uneven wear. It's not shiny. It's like, it's not good. It's got irregular wear, and I don't like it. So we're going to go ahead and get the other side. This just pops off of here like so. We'll lay this in here. And we'll go ahead and pull the rest of these push rods out. And we'll get this up. Okay. Now, if you guys watch videos on small block Chevys, or you've watched my other videos on small block Chevys, and you don't know a whole lot about motors and tearing down motors and whatever, one big difference that you'll see here between an LS-based motor and a standard small block Chevy is, standard small block Chevy, you pull your intake off, your lifters are down in there, you can pull your lifters out without taking your heads off. LS-based motors, you cannot. The push rods, well, I mean, all the push rods are inside the head, but the lifters are in their own little trays, in their own little spot in there. It's not accessible from in the valley like it is on a small block. All right. We got our valve train and everything off. I'm going to clean up my hands and stuff real quick. I'm going to go get the other camera. I'll show you guys the valve train and what everything looks like in case you're curious and don't know. And then I'll show you those push rods that got the weird wear on them that I'm not happy with. So let me get to that. All right, so here's what it looks like all broken down. You got these perches that your rockers sit on, and they just sit on here. And then the bolts go through the rockers and pinch it and hold it down to the head. So that's just kind of a mounting surface. And then you got your perches that have the, they're concave so that the roller on the rocker can sit on them. So it does its thing. And then there's no rocker adjustment on these. You just torque them down to 22 foot-pounds and that's it. So anyways, here's our rockers. It won't be in this video, but probably the next video on this project, we're gonna do a trunnion upgrade on the rockers. So you'll see all that. And like I said, I got everything laid out. This 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6, 8 rods, or the push rods are all in their space and everything else. So which ones was these? If you look at those, you see how the one on the left is shiny and the wear is even all the way around that tip. Or if you look at this one, it's kind of flatter and shows like wear marks on it. It's not, and it's not even around the tip, and it kind of wore a weird shape onto the end of that push rod. So hopefully you guys could see that. It didn't only do it, that was number, I thought it was 5, but it was that I looked at. No, it was actually, that was 7 intake, and then cylinder 6 on the other side. The intake and exhauster wore funny. I got to thinking about it. I was thinking, oh man, it's probably a lifter that failed or a cam lobe that's grinding down, because I don't want to say they're notorious for it, but LS's do have some lifter problems. And when they have the lifter problems, they usually start to eat a lobe off the cam. Generally not on these older ones. The newer ones that have the DOD, DED, displacement on demand, where they shut down cylinders to supposedly get you better fuel mileage or whatever, have a lot more problem than these do, but these have problems also. So I just assume that it's a lifter, but it could just be that the push rods weren't spinning, so it just had the same wear. He said this motor had like 165,000 miles on it or something. So if they weren't spinning and they were just wearing in the same spot for 165,000 miles, I guess it would do that. But usually they spin, and you know, they got oil coming through them, so they don't do that. But this one did. So we're gonna get back at it. We'll get these heads off, and then when we get the heads pulled off, we'll be able to pull those lifters out, and we can look at the lifters and see if there's anything weird on those. And if we don't see anything weird on those, then when we get the cam pulled out, we can check the cam, see what it looks like. It may just be a case of they were stuck in one spot and they weren't spinning, or there may be something else in there that caused it. So we're just gonna have to keep going and see. As we start at the top and work our way down, the next thing in line is going to be the heads. Now, this may not make sense to everybody, and I don't know what banged on the door, and I don't see the wind, so I'm gonna go check that out. Hold on a second. Okay, so the next thing, as we're starting at the top and working our way down, is gonna be our cylinder heads. Now, before I pull the cylinder heads off, this is just my method of doing anything. I'm not saying it's wrong if you don't, or whatever else the case may be, but before I pull the heads off of the motor, I'm going to take the spark plugs out, because it's a lot easier. Not that you can't take the plugs out with the heads off, but it's a lot easier to take the plugs out while the heads are still bolted to the block, and being that it's aluminum heads, if you have any spark plugs that are real tight or seized in there or whatever, it's a lot easier to work with them and get them out with it being mounted. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull all 8 spark plugs out, get them out of the way, and then we'll get the heads pulled off. You guys might see me checking the plugs as I pull them out and wonder what I'm doing. Like I said, everything that we put back on this, everything that we take off of this motor, everything that's going back on in its place is going to be new. So the plugs don't really matter. It's going to have a new cam, it's going to have a new timing chain, it's going to have a new oil pump. The only thing that's not going to be new is the block, the crank, and the rods and pistons, essentially. So it's not really any reason for me to check the plugs, other than the fact that it's just a force of habit. Usually when I pull plugs, I'm looking at them. So that's what I'm doing. And wow, that one wasn't even tight. Like if I look at these and read these, they look lean to me, like pretty lean. Like they're awful white, and the timing mark on them is like all the way down. So I don't know. Stock computer, all that, didn't have any check engine lights or nothing. It seems, it thinks it was running fine, so maybe it was. But to me, the way I know how to read spark plugs, looks like it had a little bit too much timing and was running a little bit lean. So, no big deal. getting a new computer, new harness, new everything, new injectors. I mean, there's not anything original going back on this. So everything will be different when we're done. All 8 plugs are even, like perfectly even, look exactly the same. So too much timing, a little bit lean, in my opinion. So, all right. First things next. If you're not familiar with this, you have 5, 10 mils up here in the top, and then you have 5, 10, 15 mils, 5 inside, 5 on the outside, down here at the bottom. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just take all these out and get the head pulled off right after I get an extension. Now, if this were an aluminum block, I would not be breaking these loose with an impact. Since it's a steel block going into the steel, I do it all the time. If you notice, like when I took the rockers off, I did use my impact, but I went through and broke them all loose and made sure they were free by hand, and then I just used the impact just to get them out faster. So, if you're going into aluminum, break them loose, at least break them loose by hand. If not, take them all the way out by hand. So, but since these are going into a steel block, cast steel block, I can go ahead and use the impact and just get them out of our way. Alright, I got all 15 bolts out of this head. I'm just pulling the last 5 out right now. And there's still water in there because it's already dripping on my floor. So, I really do not want to pull this head up and have this pour all over my floor. I don't know if there's a drain. I don't think there is. Crap. Alright guys, I'm going to let this sit here and kind of drip in this bucket for a few minutes. Hopefully we can get this head off without making a huge mess. Alright, well now that I gave everybody a chance to, you know, everybody that's familiar with LS motors and knows a little bit more than I do, now that I gave everybody a chance to run over to the comments and tell me, hey idiot, there is coolant drain plugs in an LS motor, I learned something new today. I went on my cellular device and did some searching, and hey, there's a coolant drain plug right there, and there's another coolant drain plug right there, and they look something like this. And you can pull them out and they still spray coolant all over your floor because they go straight down and hit stuff on the sides of the oil pan. Great planning, GM. Great planning. So anyways, I got those drained. I got that passenger side, driver's side head that I already had unbolted off. We're about ready to go pull the passenger side head off. And then we'll pull our lifters out and see what they look like. All right, we're gonna do the same thing over here that we did over there, but we're gonna do this side in super speed. All the cylinders are looking really, really good. No ring ridges on them. There's no, not really kind of still see some cross hatching. Not too bad. Let's go ahead and pull these lifters out and see what they look like. I'm gonna go ahead and do it all out of order because I'm curious what these look like over here. So. Alright, give these a little wiggle. And the tray came off. And all the lifters stayed in there. Of course they did. I'm going to go grab a needle nose so we can get them out. Once again, not too overly concerned with the lifters because it's getting new ones. So I just want to look at them. If you've never seen one before, this is an LS lifter, roller style. That's why they got the trays, because the trays sit on these flat sides and they keep the lifter sitting in there straight riding on the cam. So this can spin like this, like it does, because if this lifter spins in there and the cam's pushing on it this way, it can't go that way, and it'll eat that roller right off of there and eat the lobe off your cam at the same time, and your motor's junk. So we're going to go ahead and get the rest out. Well, this is the lifter that was on the push rod, and the little retaining clip that holds the lifter together is not doing its job. But the lifter isn't blowing apart. So something's not right there. I'm going to call lifter failure on why that push rod was bad. And it's got wear, bad wear on the sides of it, outsides of it where it goes in the bore also. But I'm going to call lifter failure why that push rod was weird. We'll see what the ones on the other side that were kind of the same look like. Here's the cylinder 6. That's the one that the other two push rods were worn funny on. And that roller bearing on the end of that lifter has a lot of wear on it. So does this one. And they're really stuck down in there. So that could be the reason. Maybe the lifters just weren't performing up to their potential, and that's what caused those push rods to get extra wear on them. I don't know. That one looks fine and normal. That one looks fine and normal. That one looks fine and normal. So does that one. So there's 3 that are questionable, and the rest are all okay. So oh yeah, there's good cross hatching in there. No ring ridge anywhere. Not a lot of piston rubbing in the cylinders. $165,000 miles. These cylinders don't even look like they have any wear in them. Now you could measure them to make sure they're not out of round or whatever, but when I can look at them and see even cross hatching all the way around the diameter. Okay, so the next thing in line, well, good morning, I guess. I'm back. And we're getting back on this, try to finish up the teardown process. Next thing I'm going to remove is the balancer, because I got to get it off to get the front cover off. I got to get the front cover off to get the cam retainer out, to get the cam out, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. So I'm going to tell you guys before we even get started on this, this may be like a 3 to 5 minute process, and this may be a 3 to 5 day process. And I'm being sarcastic, but at the same time, I've had these balancers. I'm going to show you the best method I know of to get these off. But I've had these balancers come off really easy with little to minimum effort. And I actually have an all aluminum 6.2 sitting over there against the wall that will be for a project someday. And I literally, me and 2 of my friends, spent 2.5 to 3 hours getting the balancer off of that crank. So they can be a bear, they can be pretty easy. I've got tricks for putting them back on, really easy, but other than using the right tools and taking your time, there's not a whole lot of tricks for taking them off. So let's just cross our fingers and hope this is one of the easy ones that's not going to give us any issues. And we'll start the day off on a positive note. So gotta take the center bolt out, which is usually pretty tight, but this old girl, as long as the battery's got some charge in it, which it kind of does, should be able to bust it right out. Or not. Let's try a charged battery, see if that helps. Alright, this battery is 100%. And it won't take it loose either. So, I guess we'll get a breaker bar and a pry bar. I should be able to get this on here. And put this in here. Come on. Remember what I said about sometimes they're really tight? Yeah, like that. There we go. That should do it. We'll get into how many foot-pounds those are when we put it back together. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's pretty intense. Alright, got that done. Okay, now, this is a balancer puller, and I believe when you look it up to order one, it says used for removing harmonic balancers on many GM, Mitsubishi, and Chrysler engines. When you look it up to order one, you look for, they probably sell it as an LS kit now, but back when I got this, I ordered it, it was a Chrysler kit, I ordered it for a Chrysler, and I don't have the longest rod anymore, because when I was telling you about that other one that we took off, it literally rolled it up to where it was unusable. So we don't have that one anymore, but this one should work, hopefully. If not, we just got to find something else that's long enough to stick in there. in here. And this is what I was worried about with that rod not being long enough. There's little grooves in the back of the dampener. You have to get it in those grooves. I'm gonna go get the other camera and I'll show you guys the whole setup on the way this gets set up on here, because if you don't do it right, it's not gonna work. So give me a second. Okay, so here's our puller. That's how it goes in there. And if you look right here, you can see there's little notches in the back of the dampener right there, or the pulley. And that's where that has to hook. And that hooks in there. And then you just hold this, screw this in. It should pull it off. Now, we've only got maybe a 1/2 inch of threads there. And this is pressed on pretty good. So that may not be enough to get it all the way off, like I said. But if it's not, I happen to know from experience that once you kind of got it broken loose a little bit, an LS push rod works just fine to take place of that longer rod. And we happen to have a bunch over there that we're not going to reuse. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if it brings it out far enough to get it off with the shorter rod that came in the kit. If not, we'll grab a push rod and reset it up and pop it the rest of the way out. But let's see which way it goes. Okay. Oh yeah, this one's coming off pretty easy. It's moving already. So that's a good thing. But like I said, that is not always the case. Alright, we just bottomed out, maxed out our push rod we had in there. So we'll back this all the way out. Take our push rod. Then we'll grab one of these, which is longer. And we'll put it in here. And there we go. That easy. If you have the right tool and it wants to play nice. Luckily we have the right tool, and this one wanted to play nice because I really didn't want to fight it. It is not fun when you got to spend hours trying to get one pulley off, let me tell you. And that puller that I just used, I think I probably only used it maybe 5 times since I bought it. But it was well worth it, I can tell you that. Alright, now we're going to pull our cover off. there should be a couple that go from the oil pan up into the bottom of the cover, like so. Now, if you're going to redo one of these and reseal everything, there's two ways you can go about this. Obviously, you can buy like an engine gasket set with seals, and you can like replace this front seal yourself, or you can buy this whole cover with the seal already in it. Same thing with the rear cover, which we'll get to later, but that's options that you have. So we'll set this out of the way, and we're just going to keep going through this thing. Now our oil pickup tube bolts onto the bottom / side of our oil pump. If you're not familiar with LS motors, this is your oil pump right here that goes around the crank, and our pickup tube bolts to it down here. Now we need to get this off. We don't need to, but it's a lot easier to take the oil pump off first, then take the timing chain off, then pull the cam out. So in order to get this, if you really want to fight, you can usually get in there and get that bolt off, but it's so much easier to just lower the pan, and we have to take the pan off anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and pop the pan bolts loose. We'll drop the pan, get it down and out of our way, and then we'll be able to go ahead and start removing the rest. Alright, I got one more bolt over here. I need an extension or something. I can't get on it. It'll be just as quick and easy to loosen it with a wrench and take it out. Alright, it might have been easier to get a extension, but oh well, we're here, we're doing it. Alright. I'm going to try to balance that right there. And we'll let that pickup tube drip while we take it off. And then down here on the bottom of this oil pump, this pickup tube has one bolt. It's got one bolt, and the bolt holds a collar. And the collar goes around the pickup tube. I'll show it to you guys when I get it off. And it holds the tube in. There's an O-ring on it. It's a common issue that when people put those together, they don't get that O-ring in right, and it tears that O-ring. And you tear that O-ring, and it sucks air. And you don't get good oil pressure. Also, another issue with these motors the reason we're putting an oil pump in it is because it has good oil pressure. Or it did, you know, when it got pulled out, they literally drove this into the garage, took the motor out of it. These oil pumps have a tendency to fail. There's nothing else wrong with the motor, all the bearings and everything are good. These oil pumps fail or wear out and you lose oil pressure. So while you got it apart, if you're gonna take it apart at all, while you got it apart, best thing you can do is just go ahead and put a new oil pump in these. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to take the 4 bolts out that hold the oil pump. Our pickup tube is still bolted on with the windage tray back there toward the back. So I'm just going to take a pry bar here and gently work the O-ring out of the oil pump. And then I can pop the oil pump off. So oil pump is out of the way. We are going to roll this over and we'll take the windage tray and all that stuff off because we have to for the new oil pan, but like I said, I'm trying to work from the top down, and to work from the top down, getting the cam out is our next step. So we're going to go ahead, pull our timing chain off. So still haven't removed our front cover gasket, which now we have, no big deal. And then another thing that I'll explain again in the series of doing this motor, but this cover plate right here, the cam retainer plate, that's a big thing to pay attention to because obviously you need it to hold the cam in. But there's a seal on the back of it. If you ever take this out, buy a new plate. Don't mess with trying to reseal it. Don't silicone it. Don't do nothing. Buy a new cam retainer plate. Replace it. If this doesn't seal good, you lose oil pressure. Whole bunch of things on these motors that you rely on to have good oil pressure. And you want to make sure that you keep them all. See, that's the seal that I'm talking about right there. Do not reuse this. Do not use silicone on it. Buy a new one. Now, we have all of our lifters out. We have everything out of the way. I'm going to go put some gloves on because the oil in this thing reeks. And I don't want too much of it soaking in my skin because I got a feeling I'm going to be smelling it for a couple days, even after I try to wash it off. So, I mean, I want to be really careful and make sure I got a good grip to get this cam out. So I stuck one of the bolts from the timing chain sprocket back in here just so I got something to pull on to get it started. And then we want to be really, really careful. Pull it out really slow and steady to make sure we don't scar up any of our cam bearings. So. I'm curious to see if there's any weird wear on this cam. which would have been back here on these loads. And there is not. There is nothing that looks bad on this cam at all. It does have wear on it. I mean, it's got 165,000 miles on it. There's wear, but nothing bad. Looks like maybe a little bit of trash is going through a couple times, and the rollers on the lifters look the same way, but nothing that's like, oh my goodness, this thing is ruined. So I don't know that I'll ever use this cam for anything, but it doesn't hurt to have one, so we'll keep it around. Now, cam's out, heads are off, all that stuff. So I think we're about ready to roll this thing over. So let's go ahead and do that. And hopefully not get covered in coolant and oil, which, there we go already. Sure glad I took those drain plugs out to see they did a lot of good. It doesn't hurt anything to get coolant on the floor, and it'll clean up. I just hate walking in it and tracking it all over the place and everything else. And I give up. It's just getting everywhere. I can't keep up with it with the bucket. Oh yeah, let's get it all over the place. Alright. Okay. Yeah, good thing we're changing the oil pickup tube. Looks like there's some leads in there. Not quite sure how leads got in the motor, but there's leads in the oil pickup tube. So I think these are 13. Yes. I thought I had 13 out here, but apparently I do not. Okay. My camera batteries are dying faster than I can keep them charged today. So I went ahead and took the nuts off of here. Here's our oil pickup. This is what I was telling you about. This is the little like retaining plate. It's got an O-ring that pushes up into the oil pump, which I'll show in the video where we put it back together. And then this goes on and has one bolt that goes into the oil pump that holds it. Now we're switching over to like a hot rod style oil pan, which is essentially the same as like a Camaro SS pan or something. So we're gonna need we need a whole new pickup tube and pan and everything, which my buddy ordered from, I believe it's Holly. But when we get everything out and start putting it together, I'll show you what we got and whatnot. But this is what the stock one looks like. This is the O-ring I was telling you got to be really, really careful about when you put it together. So that's it. I got some more nuts that I need. This is all studs with nuts. I got to take all those nuts off, and we'll pull that windage tray off. And then as far as teardown goes, we're pretty good. I've done a really good job of completely filling up my little table over here. So that's good, I guess. I'm 99% sure that the new oil pan kit comes with a different windage tray for the setup. So that's why I'm taking this one off, because I might as well go ahead and get it all off now. And after I get this windage tray off, we're going to start cleaning the block. And I want to get the block clean. We're going to paint this all, and we want to paint it, since it's going in a C10, we've decided to paint it like a small block Chevy. So even though it's going to have a nice aluminum oil pan, it's going to be painted. The block's going to be painted. The heads are going to be painted. The valve covers are going to be painted. The front cover is going to be painted. Basically everything that you would paint on a standard small block is going to get painted on this, and it's going to look cool. So you'll see it all when we do it, but I can reassemble this whole motor before I paint it. So once we get this off, we're going to work on cleaning the block, and then we can pretty much reassemble it before we paint it, which is good because the weather is not paintable, if that makes sense. So. Get that off, get it over here out of the way. A lot of that stuff I'm either going to just set off to the side or take out to the scrap pile. Kind of depends how I'm feeling when I get to that point. But for right now, I'm just setting it to the side because I don't 100% know that we don't need that windage tray and stuff like that. So I'm just holding on to everything right here until we start getting stuff put back together, so that I make sure I have everything that we need. Alright, well, I'm not going to make you guys sit here and watch me clean this block. So I'm going to put it on a time lapse. We'll get a little bit of squirty stuff, some toothbrushes, maybe a scraper or two, whatever it takes. We'll get, all we really got to clean is the sides right here and the sides right here. Not a whole lot to it, so I'm just going to shut up and get it done. Okay, it's not super dirty. It is kind of dirty, but it's not super dirty. I don't have any simple green right now, which is what I normally use. So I've got some glass cleaner, got some brand new toothbrushes. I'm going to just get in here, spray it down, scrub it. Got some towels here, we can wipe it off. And then the last step will be to hose it off with brake parts cleaner, because that's kind of like a wax and grease remover. And we'll have to clean it again, like clean it with like wax and grease remover again right before we paint it, because you know we'll be touching it and stuff while we're doing it. So right now I just want to get the big gunk off. So with any hope there's enough battery in the camera for me to do a time lapse of getting this done. So here we go. Okay, I got this thing all cleaned up and dried, wiped down. It may look like there's still some dirt and stuff on it, but that's not dirt. It's like haze from the brake parts cleaner on the paint. We'll wipe it all down again before we paint it, like I mentioned, to get greasy fingerprints and whatever off of it. But for the most part, there may be a little bit I need to touch again, but for the most part, she's pretty dang clean and about ready to put paint on. So, pretty excited about that. Now, I told you before I ended this video, I would let you guys know, kind of give you a rundown of what all's happening to this motor. And that's what we're gonna do right now. So, like I said, it's a 2005 6.0 liter LS based motor. It's out of a 2005 Denali. I think it's an LQ9. I'm probably wrong. But it's getting, we'll start here. We're going with a Holly street car or hot rod oil pan setup. Comes with a pickup tube, windows tray, oil pan, all that stuff. New oil pump. We have a Texas Speed and Performance cam. When we get ready to put that in, I'll give you specs and all that stuff on it. We are upgrading the springs on the heads. New cam, new lifters, new push rods, new oil pump, new timing chain set. And then we're gonna do the trunnion upgrade on the rocker arms. And I think that's it. So, like I mentioned right before I started cleaning it, we're gonna paint oil pan, block, front cover, heads, valve covers, yada, 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 all the same color. So we're gonna go ahead and assemble all of it before we put any paint on it. So this is gonna wrap up this video. I'm doing like a series in a series. So this is part of the Shorty series, but it's gonna be a series about getting this motor ready and putting it in Shorty. So this is the end of this video. This was like the teardown phase. Next video will be all the upgrades to the motor. I mean, everything to where it's put back together and ready to set in the frame. And then depending on how long that takes, we may go ahead and set it in the frame on that video, or we may make another video of setting it in the frame. I mentioned earlier, we have this Stage 2 4L60. We've got Tejas Steelworks mounts, Tejas Steelworks transmission cross member. There's that top shelf up there is all parts for the motor or motor install. These 4 tubs here are all parts for the motor or motor install, and there may be more laying around that I'm missing. So there's a lot we're gonna do with this motor, and that's why I'm making a couple separate videos on it. Instead of rushing through everything and making a 2-hour video, I'm making 2 or 3 shorter videos to get it all done. We got our engine towers that have already been cleaned, ready for paint. We can get them painted, get them in, get our new mounts, yada, 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 yada. There's a lot of stuff going on with putting this motor in, and this is the project that I'm working on right now. So this video and probably the next 2 in a row will all be finishing this motor and putting it in this truck. So if you're interested in it, hit the subscribe button so you know when the next video comes out, which should be fairly soon. But other than that, we made quite a bit of progress. We got this tore down. It happened to work out because the weather outside's crap, so I have to work inside. Got it all tore down, got it cleaned up, and it's ready to start reassembly. So that's gonna do it for this video. If you guys haven't gone over to the merch site and checked out what I got going on there, please do. harmongarage.net. You never know. Might be something on there you can live without, and that would be good. But anyways, if it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be able to do this. Y'all have a good one, and we'll see you next time.